Good morning, and welcome to our continuing series, Interviews with Aurovillians. We continue with our beloved friend, Frederick. Namaste. You know, the Tamil people have been almost the backbone, we could say, of the labor force in Auroville. All of them worked in the Matrimondia Gardens nursery for many, many years. Some have even passed away now. They were great workers for me. We have rarely had any problems with them. Okay, stealing mangoes and not. There's a story about that. I wrote to Mother because Tuan had seen them with a huge sack of mangoes. And I said, what to do, Mother? Mother said, oh, if it's only mangoes, they can be forgiven this time. And you've had a lot of association with the Tamil people. Could you share some of your experiences?
I like to talk about it, but I also like to be clear that because of many personal histories, I know that sometimes I come through sort of patronizingly or like this, and I really resent that in myself. Because we all say, yes, we are all equal, but when it comes to actually existential thing, it would be wrong to say that we are all equal. I'm not saying up or down, I'm just saying. So this was in the very early times already brought to the mother's attention, and I don't have to repeat all the things she said about the local population, that they're closer to the divine than the most educated Westerner, and
yes.
so many things. And if you feel that you're doing anything good by giving something, you are in the illusion. I have had an existential crisis moment in my life where suddenly out of that tradition which we call Tamil around us, I could feel a wave of support. When I lost my first son, when I went through personal problems, when the mother left, when I was imprisoned, there were moments where I suddenly felt held without any words. They knew what was happening, they looked at me and they gathered around me, and it was extremely touching. I don't know how to express my gratitude to this sense of oneness. Now, historically, as I mentioned in the previous interview, I got always involved in working with the surrounding population, whether it was building the road for the inauguration, creating a free midday meal. I had collected some money from Germany and started a Tamil Fund for Rural Development, which was just a channel to get something, building houses, fraternity. Popper was building there, bringing drinking water to Edan Chavadi. It was always very basic. But my real interest still is the young people. That means getting together, playing football, introducing softball, or what the American would call baseball, So that was always the adventure. That was always the joy to move around. And many of our youngsters at that time, our children, there was many other children, they would even go into the schools, into the village, and that's why many of them speak their language very well, which unfortunately, for some reason, I never learned. I don't know what. I've made so many attempts. Laziness is one thing, yes. But I had once a very strong indication inside, because there were particularly people from America. There was David and forget the names now, but they felt in order to integrate in the village, you have to go into the village and become like a villager. They knew the language, or rudimentary language, so they were acting like villagers, with their lungi and their thing and their tundu and their this, and living in the village. And for some reason, I could never make this step. I had immediately reluctance. And I had this vision of two friends. They were not even identified as, let's say, Westerner or Tamil, but two friends. In order for that friendship to act, you have to stay apart. You have to stay yourself. You don't have to make a division, but in order to interact. So I always retained my Westerness, or my such, what they call in German, So-Sein, my such existence. Also with the very fact that, obviously it was, my life in the beginning was quite different. I built a big house, I seemed to have access to money, and so on. I can't wish it away or say, no. No, there were obviously differences. Now, this being on a more personal thing, I have very often gone with friends from the villages on pilgrimages within the closer distance of the Tiruvannamalai and Kanchipuram and down to Rameshwaram and Dhanashkudi and Cape Comorin and many places, Trichy, Rock Temple and so on, Madurai. Because I feel that, as you say, on a workforce, but also on the very basis, the grounding of Auroville is Tamil Nadu. The recognition, it's not just a given, and I had people saying, Auroville would be so wonderful if it wouldn't be in India. Oh. Yeah? But I also can't wish away that sometimes when you go through the day, sometimes there is, it's too much, the noise, the pollution, the dirt. We also have to say something. We in Auroville don't know much about the real class. We have been, and I think there's even a design originally, don't want to blame, but I think the Aurobindo society admitted to what they called at that time integrated family, only people from the village. We had very few, one or two really high-class educated Tamil among us. Amrita in the ashram came from the village. It became a secretary to the ashram. We have had very, very few. So when we talk about Tamil, we only refer to what we know in our surrounding. But the knowledge that there is a highly developed language and culture and science among us, we don't know. I don't think many of us know. And I think this is a thing which we have to doesn't necessarily mean that you now have to, first thing you have to learn the language, but to just recognize Ramanuja, the people who have the music which is being developed. So I think that in that third phase I was mentioning it, in order to really move, you have to fully integrate your base. You have to stand on something. And actually the success story is that the middle generation now, which are holding the position of operational executives in Auroville, more than half of it are youngsters who grew up here in the village, The finances, the construction, the planning, they're all here from here. So I feel this doesn't mean that we are lifting off now and leaving all this behind. I think there will be a kind of merging of the base, which is Tamil Nadu, In the before Auroville, I don't know whether I told you about this experience I had when I came back from a pilgrimage to Chittambaram. I had walked back and I saw that I was out in the ocean in the night. I saw the dark waves in front of me, and then I saw the silhouette of the palm leaves on the shore, and behind I saw the sort of hill of Auroville, and over the hill grew that golden city. And I was on the ocean, and I knew the time has come to make landfall. After maybe having drifted for the first 25 years of my life, and having made landfall here. Now, the true vastness of Auroville will be based and rooted here, but its true vision will come over the ocean. There was a beautiful picture. Didn't I tell you about this when I was in Russia and had that vision of...
No.
I had had a lot of fights with people in the ashram, individuals who had been not taking a stand as we expected them to do, or in the society. There was also violent situation and very hard. And I had been gone out of India, and I had a vision of beyond the horizon of the ocean, there is an armada being put together, and the admiral of this armada, with the back to me, is the mother, recognizable as the mother. And she arranges these different boats, and each one has a long strip, like a chimney, and she arranges it in a way. In the end, it becomes like these Chinese silk screens, a whole landscape. And each strip is absolutely essential. And if it wouldn't be there, there would be a gap. And in each one are all the so-called enemies or opponents, the Navajata, the Pradap, the Pradyubhatacharya, the Kunuma. They're all standing there. And Mother says they're all part of that large panorama. So that was such a strong experience that when I came back, I tried to seek out every one of them and said, I'm sorry if I have caused any, whatever. And they were all very, very gracious, very gracious. So coming back to the base and the landfall and the bridgehead which Tamil Nadu opened itself, not only as part of India, but by its vast and rich past to Auroville. There's a synchronicity in this happening, and its movement forwards can only happen like Tamil Nadu has to be the solid base for our moving into the world.
For me, it was quite easy because the conservatives of forests would come.
Yeah.
They would visit. They would take me on trips into the Ghats.
Yeah.
The directors of botanical gardens were completely open. We would share things. It was so easy because it was on the horticultural level.
Yeah, it was one specific topic, no?
Exactly. It was the flowers, basically.
Yeah.
But I remember some people, for example, my Maestri was Sundaramurti.
Sundaramurti, yeah.
And he was thrown out because he was caught selling some grass, some sod pieces. But when he passed away, and I went to his funeral, he was there in a cool box, so his sons could come from America. His wife was crying and saying, he taught my father, and was a daughter, he taught my father English. Oh. And that's what they remembered. And it was so touching. I went with the Selvam, of course. And like Selvam, for example, he was He's the go-to man for so many people in Auroville.
Definitely.
We have great Tamil Aurovillians now helping us. The problems that have arisen, probably they had to arise to be worked out.
Yeah, I mean there are actually, I mean as I said, even the resistances and the restrictions and the reactions to the soul, there is a battle going on, no?
Yeah.
But I think the knowledge of the soul is very strong here. There no. And sometimes because the externalities are so confusing and so sometimes repulsive, you might say, the dirt, that you forget that there is something behind, no?
Yeah.
We were mentioning something before, which I think I might just touch upon. Again, we have to always learn new instruments, new languages, new methods of expression. And I think for our communication with the young people, not only the young people in the villages, which I'm involved with very much, but also our own young people, I frankly don't know the language. I have often been struck by their commitment and loyalty to Auroville, particularly when I meet them outside. I took exhibitions now for 2 years, or 1.5 years we went through India. There's a strong knowledge. They might express their commitment to Auroville in words which I don't know, but I think they're coming through very strongly. But within Auroville, there is a bit of a lament from the older or the very old and the middle-aged generation that we are not able to bring in more inflow from the young ones into whether it's the governance or in all to the activities, Often it happens through now, let's say, events, sports events. We're doing one in October now, or the youth link, or the youth center, or whatever. There are, But in terms of an ongoing molding and forming the next phase, the third phase, as you might say, for Auroville, and I think, frankly, maybe the best thing is, first of all, to create a vacuum from our side. There may be no vacuum. But people often who talk about it, that the young people are not coming, are sitting in the chairs, and then maybe you should just get off the chair and create an empty chair.
I've heard so many things, of course, about. I'll give you one example. A singer came to the Om Choir one night, and she asked if she could have a lesson. I said, yes, come to Pandi and I'll give you a lesson at my place. She had never heard, she had been here for 2 or 3 weeks in Auroville and didn't know there was an ashram in Pandi. And I think many people don't know the work of Mother and Sri Aurobindo. How do we broach that subject without being proselytizing or...
You have the same, you have other developed means, the singing and your recitation and all this, but we have to I think by just being aware of it, without immediately already starting to formulate certain methods and processes, just to be aware of it, that would already open new methods for young people to come, new methods of making it possible for them to stay some time here and work, We have to create spaces. Don't fill them up. Many of the people whom you ask, they say, we would welcome young people, but they don't do it the way, or they are not responsible, and they are not continuous, and so on. But you keep on making conditions. it may fall, it may be a catastrophe, maybe okay, but don't say inviting them and then tell them under how you're supposed to do it. That is our
very
double.
interesting because
Our double take, no?
Yes, and I know that there's a group of 600 being planned now to come and many people are against this. Oh, they'll smoke and they'll drink and it'll just be another chaos. But it won't be. There's something else that will bring them here, and it's the soul.
Yeah, we have to be more courageous or more faithful or more trusting that the mother takes care of it. I remember there was when the first hippies came to the ashram, I don't know, the scandal in their dirty feet and their dirty lungi and their, being on top of the playground there, and I don't know what they were doing up there. Scandal. But mother was, She was sent Jimi Hendrix music. She was sent an LSD trip. She was,
sent her the Doors.
You sent her the Doors.
A recording.
So yeah. she was, so stop being so judgmental on all these things. This is, I have to close my mouth because I'm one of the most judgmental persons there is, but I feel they have something to show us. I think it's working itself out, and particularly many people go out, learn a skill. I did the same thing, and come back, and many of them do come back and plow it back into the experiment of Auroville.
How long did you go out?
6 years, 5 years.
Wow.
From 61 to 66, no? That was what I told the mother. I like to learn something to be able to bring back and help. And when I came back, then I told I was working with Medananda, I was working in the school, I was working in sports, I was like that. And then all of this started.
Could you share a few remembrances of Medananda, because no one has spoken about him?
Medananda is one of the finer products of Germany, but he's very German also. But for whatever reason, I ended up on the same staircase in front of the library. It was very sweet to me, very nice, very, very helpful. His story is he was a lawyer, and when the Nazis came in and they wanted that all the lawyers swear loyalty to the Führer, they what? What? No. He said to me, he looked at the globe, here is Germany, and what is on the other side, which is South Pacific. So he said, I'm going there. So he needed to get permission to leave. He had a passport, and in order to get permission to leave, he had to surrender his passport for getting another travel document. So he goes to this German Beamten, the civil servant there, and he has got all these passports stuck there, and he says, okay, here is my passport, and want to give him another permit to exit Germany. So the guy puts his passport on top of this pile, and it doesn't mesh, it doesn't line up. So he wants to push this passport, but there's nothing sticking out. So he gets very confused, very German. He says to me, what happened? Yeah, I cut it a bit off because it didn't fit into my pocket. But that is Medananda and the German bureaucracy. So he left, and
they let him go.
They let him go.
Oh.
Get lost. He spent some time. Don't know how he came to know about Aurobindo and the mother and so on and so on and so on. And he kept on asking whether he could come, and he was first rejected, and I don't know who maybe Pavitras wrote to him or somebody, and then finally he came, and short story, finally he ended up with the library, because he was a very read and well-read and educated person, and then the mother said to him, I only let you run the library as long as you know what we are looking for is not in these books. Yeah. So, but I met him. He was very sweet, and but coming to the end of it, I moved out to Auroville. He in the end was not so happy in the ashram. He wanted to move out to Auroville, and it was not a very happy experience. It is truly a different dynamics in Auroville, and you are one of the few who can bridge it. I think he was not happy here. Yvonne, his partner, mother speaks about her in the agenda.
Yes.
Director of education. It's okay. Each one had to play its own role. Equals one, yeah, at that time, now it looks like old hat, we all know it now, but if you have to remember, we are talking about the beginning of the 60s, what was 60s?
Shelley was there.
67, Shelley was there. You know, equals one, and it was a new concept, it was something which broke through, no? And they all played their role in this long line of descent. Each one has a certain link to fulfill, no?
What was your relation with Sat Prem? What was your relation with Sat Prem?
Well, I mentioned it in our last interview. I was...
mentioned him briefly.
I was... for some reason, I felt that I could be the carrier or the postman or the messenger for not only the only one, for many others also, messengers for Auroville. I could never really fulfill that role of being an official carrier of messages. But in my own personal life, I think besides Mother and Aurobindo, he would be the most enlightened being I have met. And maybe the Dalai Lama.